Hello and welcome, everybody. And I am so happy to have you guys on episode 19. We're having some trouble with LinkedIn, but I'll have my team work on reconnecting us over there. But we are live on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook at this point. So I'll just tell my team, guys, please, if you guys can make this thing rectify what's going on. Uh, Siddharth, Siddharth Ladsariya, he's one of most entrepreneurs follow the concept of becoming an entrepreneur first, then an angel investor, and then a VC. But Siddharth has gone the completely opposite way. So he's one of those unique founders who actually invested in 100 companies plus, and then decided to become a founder of a company. So without further ado, Siddharth, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Anirudh.
So to tell you a little bit about Siddharth, has so Siddharth, you come from an entrepreneurial family, right? Your family is well known for its company called Everest Flavors, right? And but you decided to take a completely different path. I know you work a little bit in the family business, but you sort of made your own path even when it comes to investing, even when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about what was it like growing up in an entrepreneurial family? Your father obviously went to IIT, very well known figure. What was it like?
So first, thanks a lot, Anirudh, for having me on the show, and thank you to all the viewers who are present here. As Anirudh mentioned, my father went to IIM Ahmedabad, and post that he worked for a few years and then started his own business. And I had a lucky childhood, and I was pretty lucky that I grew in an entrepreneurial family and had the opportunity to learn entrepreneurship firsthand every day of our lives of the past 36 years. When you are in a family where every day there's business talks amongst the family members and amongst the people in the house, so you automatically tend to learn a lot of things. So that was a lucky situation to be in for me. Growing up in an entrepreneurial family, a family had its own uniqueness and exciting, where it's a very volatile life of an entrepreneur. So seeing my father and the family do business, it was a very exciting journey to see their excitement and see them growing in their own business. Coming to me, yes. So of course, got a lot of learnings because of being part of this family in entrepreneurship. So basic foundations of business, which is profitability, keeping your costs low, working hard, etc. Basic foundations of any business. These learnings, I don't think I could have gotten elsewhere. So most new founders that I see nowadays, they typically tend to learn on the job. Who don't come from entrepreneur families, but they also have a positive advantage. We have a restriction in our mind. Our mind is a little blocked. We can't dream wild. We can't take. So for example, I could never imagine having a business which burns money. I mean, what is burn? I mean, the first time I heard this word burn was when I did my first angel investment. So we could never imagine. You can never imagine, that you create a company which goes online and which becomes 100x in say 2 years. That is something which we could have never imagined being part of the traditional business background. Luckily for me, I got this experience of both the sides of the world. First, being part of an entrepreneurial family and being part of the family business, and then investing in startups. So I have learned a lot from the entrepreneurs, from the founders that we've invested in. They have actually been my teachers and been part of their exciting dream story. So and seen them go wild, really wild. So yeah, so luckily I was lucky to have both sides of the world. Hey, Anirudh, are you there? In the meanwhile, for the audience, let me just introduce myself. I am Siddharth Ladsariya, did my engineering, post that worked for a couple of years at ICICI Bank as a relationship manager. Post that I went to do my MBA at University of Rochester, Simon School of Business, and then came back, joined my father's business, as part of my father's business. I was part of various initiatives, and then I was motivated to start investing in
But
startups.
Siddharth, tell me one thing. You could have obviously joined your father's business, but you decided to work for ICICI Bank. That too, from in a very hardcore relationship management. I mean, it's a very nice word, but it's basically a sales business. Go sign up people, open accounts for people, and this is I'm talking about 2005, 6, 7, right? So this is pre-internet era, like very, very like hardcore. I mean, you did what I did, which is door-to-door sales. Let's put it that way. But tell me, what was the motivation? Why didn't you just join your dad's business? Was that a decision you made, or you guys made together? How was it come to?
No, so definitely at that young age, I was not uh, the sole decision maker. It was, from the advice of my father, and that I should work in a professional company, because before I joined the family business, which was always there. So yes, I got immediately after my engineering, I got placed from my campus at ICICI Bank and in the sales department as a relationship manager, and exactly selling insurance policies, which is the most difficult thing on this planet to sell.
Yeah.
So that's what my profile was. And looking back, that decision, it was a very, very good decision. I could have never learned in my business what is appraisal systems. I could have never learned in my system how do you deal with professional employees. I could have never learned in my how do you deal with senior people, and
Hmm.
what is hard work, to be honest. When you're in someone else's job, you really have to work hard. What is hard
But I
work?
beg
And
to differ. I think our parents would make us work much harder, and we don't get any appraisals.
I, yeah. So what is hard work? What is reporting to a boss? The feeling of having a boss. So it was a huge learn. I would say it was a 2-year internship for me practically, and huge learnings that I have got from there.
I think part of it you also went abroad for. Like you were still with ICICI when you were in the US, or was it
Hmm.
completely
I, I
shifted
I
India?
I had left ICCA when I went to the US. I went to the US to do my masters in MBA. Yeah.
Acha, acha,
So
I
that.
see.
Yeah.
And then you came back and you did your MBA in finance, strategy, and entrepreneurship, right? And were you clear that you wanted to be an entrepreneur when you came back?
Yeah. So you always aspire to be like any kid aspires to be like his father. So seeing my father being an entrepreneur, so I'd always aspired to be an entrepreneur. Of course, there was a condition put by my family that I will not work in the US, because they typically once a kid starts working there, the kid doesn't return back. So I immediately after my MBA, they wanted to, take me back home, and yeah. So that's.
And then you came back and you joined Everest for a bit, right? You were with Everest Flavors. So can you tell us a little bit what does Everest Flavors do? What was your role in the business?
So I'm still part of it. I mean, I still work for Everest Flavors Limited,
Yeah.
which is we are basically into manufacturing and export of essential oils. So
Okay.
menthol and mint related products is what we manufacture and which we export. Typically, these are used in pharmaceutical products, toothpaste, balms. So that the minty flavor is what we manufacture.
Okay.
We also have a
Mostly
size
importing or exporting this?
exporting.
Do you know? Export.
99% is exported. Yeah. uh,
Acha.
uh, we also have a sizable listed equity portfolio, so listed shares portfolio. So that is the second part of the
So guys, if
business.
anybody wants some advice on what to buy in the listed space besides startup space, you can always reach out to Siddharth. And we'll, we'll,
So
we'll
yeah.
get you his email address in a bit, right? We'll get you his email address. So stay on.
And after coming back from the US, or in between also, my father was motivating me, why don't you go and look at the startup world. He had attended one meeting of Mumbai Angels back in
Hmm.
2008, and he's like, why don't you, he probably realized that this kid might get frustrated in the family business, or he might get very so that was more like a motivation for me to look at some things new and get excited. So in 2010, when I returned back fully, I started attending, actively these meetings and so on, and that is how the startup journey for us began. And in back in 2008, when we first made the first investment, and then in 2010 when we accelerated on our investments. I think Anirudh has frozen. So yeah, while we are, just to tell you a very funny incident which happened with me when I made my first investment ever in 2008. So I was in a room of in a meeting room with very very senior people, large VCs, today's large VCs, and those time. And I was a very small kid, probably 26 years back then, and or 25 years back then. And I the first company that we invested was a company known then by the name Reverse Logistics. And everyone in the room is like, hey, it's a very good company, very good company. So I come back home and I tell my dad, it's a very good company, we should invest. And the question that he asked me is, what does the company do? I'm like, blank. I mean, like, I didn't think over that. And of course he realized that I was too small a kid. And then we invested in that company. And the beauty is that 6 months later we suddenly get an email from the company saying, hey, we are ready to buy you out for 6x in 6 months. And we're like, wow, what an amazing. And we are like, all of us in that room, all of us who made that investment through Mumbai Angels today said, let's exit. And today, if we would have kept those shares of the company, it would have been worth probably 20, 30, 40 times more than what it was. Yeah. So anyways, my first investment. Yeah.
But we were also investors together in fact, the funny thing is, so a few episodes back, episode 15, we had Anil Joshi, right, who was obviously, in a way,
Yeah.
one of the guys that actually made Mumbai Angels what it was. And I remember one of my first meetings at, when we used to meet at Mayfair banquets, right? And I remember, like, I didn't know anybody, and I was like, "Ye kaun se room mein aa gaya? Where am I?" And I met you, and I was like, "Oh, this guy looks like about the same age as I am." And then immediately, like, we hit it off, and I learned a lot, in fact, about like reducing the amount you put in every round, make sure you do follow-ons, all of that we learned together. But in a way, the entire ecosystem has now changed, right? And
So
I think
by the way, we learned it the hard way, by making big mistakes. You are lucky to have just learned it.
that, well, we're still making mistakes though. Let's
Yeah.
say that too. But Siddharth, I mean, what do you see now different to angel investing when you were doing it? With the whole network concept, and today obviously the whole networks are now 1,000, 2,000, some people saying 10,000 members big. Is there a major difference that you see between what used to be and what it is today?
So let me start from the basics. So I see a huge difference in the number of people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. So if back then probably there were X entrepreneurs, today it's 10,000 X. So so the number of startups that come to you and the number of good startups and good founders who come to you have increased significantly. Point number one. The next is, yes, earlier back in those days, there were only mainly two angel networks which were facilitating this entire thing. Now we have from several angel networks, several incubators, several. I remember the first incubator I had to actually, when I came back from the US, I learned this fancy concept known as incubators and accelerators, and I had to actually search, is there anything in India? And the first that I got was, I just heard a word called Morpheus, and I had to actually hunt the person running it back to Chandigarh, and and he's like, yeah, we are an accelerator. Why don't we talk? And so we were all trying to figure out that back in those days what we were doing.
We
So
have to get Samir on this show. It seems like Morpheus is the topic of conversation now for
yeah,
4 or 5 episodes.
he's a very good friend and a very good advisor also. So you should have him on the show. So yeah, so back in those days, these were the people who were facilitating. Now we have probably several angel networks, several groups, several private groups. A few friends of us have just got together and we invest together. So lots of deal flow happening. The enthusiasm amongst the entrepreneurs is much more than what it was earlier. The ecosystem is facilitating it and fostering it. So yeah, I see a huge positive movement in the entire ecosystem from where it was in 2008, 9, and where it is today.
And when you started, did you have any thoughts like, I'm going to create 100 startup, 200 startup portfolio? I'm going to do this, that, and the other. What was the goal when you started?
No,
Was there any goal?
No, there was no goal actually. So I was motivated to go and learned what is angel investing and that's how I went into my first meeting, which I was sharing the experience with the audience while you got disconnected. So I went there in a room just to learn and made my first investment, copying a few other senior folks in that room. And 6 months later, we realized that this actually makes money. Of course, we never had the objective of only making money through angel investment. So there were three objectives, which we had outlined as a family. The first objective was definitely financial returns in whichever way. So that is any investment that you do is. The second objective was that you are getting to learn so many new things and so many new ideas, and
So true.
you are getting to live the dream of a founder and the passion of a founder. And the third was creating more jobs. Most of this money, most of this so-called risk money that we call, or equity money, goes into creating jobs, because they are mostly invested into new age companies and so on. So creating
So,
jobs
so,
for the
so true. Actually, most people don't actually recognize that, this angel investing is actually doing so much social good. It's not just about valuations and things like that. Hmm.
So these were the three objectives that we outlined. And then, after the first investment, 6 months later, we saw that this actually makes money. So then, why don't we do it? Why don't we do it, and not only with the sole reason that the kid remains occupied, but with the reason that there was no goal per se. There was no goal per se. But yeah, being perennial optimists and by nature, we used to love most of the companies that we used to see. And yeah, over a period of time, we've learned to be choosy. But yeah, we made a lot of investments, lot of good learnings that we've had, good experiences, and we've failed also in quite a few
What
cases.
would let's say be by far your most satisfying investment?
So satisfying monetarily.
I didn't ask you X's wise. You can choose to make it X's. I mean, we are all Marwadi after all. But but what was most satisfying?
So I'll tell you what, the most satisfying investment that I've done is in Vista Rooms. These were three founders that I got together. We started the I mean, I was part of their company right since day one or day zero, and till today it's been 5 years since they're running the company, and right now it's grown into a pretty sizable company. And and the entire journey living through the entrepreneurial dream.
Vista's Pranav was here on the show. Pranav has been on the show before. But you could, what does Vista do? Maybe you could also tell us about that.
So Vista is basically to hiring premium villas. So villas all across the country, they have 300 plus villas, and they're the largest in India. Premium villas where people can go and rent it for a day or 2 days or a week, and now in COVID, people are renting it for months together.
Hmm.
So these are typically, these villas are 3 to 4 bedrooms, and they start anywhere between 25,000 and go all the way up to 1 lakh per night. So they're ultra premium villas, and that is what Vista Rooms does. And they also, of course, provide the element of good quality service and food and surprises and so on over it. So yeah, so my most
So what was the most
satisfying.
satisfying thing? Yeah.
So
What
the
was
most
most
satisfying
satisfying about it? Hmm.
was living their journey. I actually got to learn probably most of my learnings before starting my own company was in my journey with Vista Rooms. I actually learned what is social media marketing. I actually learned all the aspects of a new age business, which was not part of my traditional business, while living their dream through these founders. And the best part was I didn't have to work for it. I mean, I was a mentor there. So they were working for it, and I was getting learning simply. Yeah. So that was go
So
ahead, go ahead.
and then no and what was the most, let's say, obviously we were in Oyo together, but is there any other investment that has done better than Oyo in your portfolio?
So
One that we already, yeah.
in terms of so we generally don't like talking about our investments in the public domain, but yeah, but in terms of multiple, Oyo has been by far the best investment, where we both of us, we I think exited at 250x odd or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in terms of multiple, in terms of quantum, there have been other investments also, and yeah, which have done better. uh,
On your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned in your where you've mentioned that you're an angel investor. You said that you mentioned that you believe that startups should focus on team building, continuous fundraising, and aim to become self-sufficient through growth and sales. Right? So
Right.
could you elaborate on that? And I don't think you've changed that in a long while. So do you still believe that?
Yeah. So okay. So any new age company or startup or team is the most important thing. I mean, if you get good people, like-minded people right from day one, it is a make it or break it. So just to give you an example of Oyo Rooms, the kind of team that he had created right and back in the initial days, where he had no money, no equity per se, was stellar. I mean, was incredible. The kind of people he had got from BCG and McKinsey's and of the world, and his focus right from day one was extremely good team building. So I believe in the same concept. Okay, that the startups should have. They should continuously focus on team building. Whether they have money in their pockets to afford the team or not is not a decision-making criteria. But when you keep continuously, when times change, you can afford them, or they come for a salary or whatever, whatever is the reason. So team building is definitely continuous fundraising again. That to keep this entire team and yourself motivated, and to keep the fire in the belly, and when there are some other people watching you from the top, it definitely helps them. It definitely helps push yourself to the limits that you wouldn't do otherwise. So
True.
continuous fundraising for of course equity utilization plus this reason is the second concept that I believe in. And then businesses I have seen typically tend to fail when they get into this cycle of only fundraising, burning, team building, only fundraising, burning, team building. So what I would suggest here is that businesses have to move towards unit economics profitability after a certain stage of their business. Most of the large companies which have shut down is when they couldn't get out of this nasha of fundraising and burning. So
Continuously just be out there fundraising, right? You just raise a round, and next thing you know, they're back out there raising another round as soon as the
back up.
paperwork is signed.
We've seen many of them together. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so that is unit economics, profitability, basic foundations of business should apply to any business. It can apply a few years later, not right from day one, but it should apply to every business.
And then, so now, obviously, while you're doing all of this, right? You did you ever feel like, where do you draw the line between saying, I'm an investor, right, and then I'm actually getting operationally involved? I mean, Vista, you were sort of right on the fence because you were so deeply involved. But with other ventures, that how did you maintain that relationship with the founder?
So I'll tell you, the model that I follow or we follow is we've invested in more than 135 companies. Now we don't have
True.
the bandwidth to be active with all these companies. Typically, out of them, 7 to 10 companies are where we are active. We are active. Again, coming from a business background family, right from day one, I've been taught that never get involved operationally in your business, because if
Hmm.
if you as a CEO or as a founder or as a senior person get involved in day-to-day operations, then you cannot think bigger, you cannot look out of the box for new ideas, you cannot do you cannot focus on the sales, financing, and other aspects of a business. So I don't get involved operationally with any of the startups. That is
Okay.
point. The second part is, yes, these 7 to 10 startups is where we take onus, or where we take, we call ourselves the lead investors. So there we get involved very actively with them to ensure that they succeed. So that requires a lot of hand holding, mentoring, being there together, connects, and so our bandwidth doesn't allow us to do more than 5 to 7 startups at a time, any point in time.
And at what level? I mean, I'm sure we've all had failures. I've had shutdowns, you've had shutdowns, but at what point do you decide, what, this company is not going to work out? I need to cut my losses, and move
So,
on.
so yeah, so again, so the 5 to 7 startups, apart from them, we are very passive investors. So we are very passive investors in most of the startups. So typically an email comes to us, hey, we've shut down. We're like, wow, congratulations. Do you want to do something else together? So that's how it works. We are passive. Yeah. In the ones that we are active, luckily none of them has shut down. I mean, we never allowed them to burn as much as that it takes them to the level of shutting down. We have always been cost conscious, and so none of them have shut down. But yes, there have been a failure And at that point in time, we realized that, hey, this founder has lost interest in the business. Typically, our failures have been because the founders have, got tired and lost interest in the business after a couple of years. So let's exit, and whatever salvage value we can remove from this venture, let's remove that. So typically we
But
get
Siddharth,
half.
that's a very interesting point you bring up, because a lot of the people on our show obviously are in their ventures for the fifth, sixth, seventh, even some of them 10 years in. How do you maintain and your father's obviously run a business for such a long time, and he's still excited about it, right? I mean, sometimes you've told me that I have to hone him down, okay, don't be so aggressive, like, but how do you think founders can maintain that level of intensity over a long period of time?
See, few things that they need to do. One, it has to come from within, passion. So businesses, typically I've seen where founders start businesses for making money. It never, that passion never comes out. Business money
But
should be
that's what
all.
founders think now. You start a business to make money, and you're saying you can't make money. Why do you say that?
Most good founders, money is the side product for any business. They start businesses for some passion, most good founders. And they have to work day in and day out towards that goal, towards that passion, and they don't even get tired working towards that for many many years together. So one thing, it has to drive them from within. They should be passionate about it. For example, the company that I have started, Everest Fleet, money is definitely important, but a side product. What really excites us is creating more and more jobs for the country. So that is what excites us. So first point, that it has to come from within. That is the biggest learning. So we need to identify that passion in that entrepreneur before investing in it. The next thing that we definitely, I personally believe, is that younger founders typically have more chances and probability of being passionate and being intense for a longer period of time, whereas older founders, and especially older successful founders, they don't remain hands-on anymore. So they become managers or CEOs, but they're not founders anymore. And any startup, I mean, the founder has to do plumbing, and the founder has to do everything that you can imagine. And
True. Very
yeah.
true.
So this is the second thing that we have realized. And the third, which plays an important role, is the mentor slash advisor that they have. That they have to continuously motivate them and drive them to achieve goals which are stretched and which are aggressive in nature, and push them towards those goals. So these are the three things that I have learned, what pushes founders to achieve what is more what is I mean, what is difficult to achieve.
Do you also think having something outside the business? Because I also see a lot of founders, they become very, their own business focused. They don't go out and hone other areas of their life, right? And then, obviously there's a fatigue, because 24/7 nobody can keep up an intensity unless you put your mind off the business, right? How are you going to give something a new look unless you look somewhere else and come back and look at it again? How important is that for a founder?
So what you're referring towards is probably work-life balance, or having other extracurricular
Not even
activities.
balance, I would just say just having another passion, right? You may not have balance in life, but at least having another passion in life, right?
So true. Most of our founders and most startup founders never have balance in there, especially not work-life balance, because the first few years of us running a startup are extremely, extremely difficult and intense. So you can't be looking for having a good balance in at least the first 2 to 3 years. This said, some other activity. So I am passionate. Just to give you an example,
I
I
was going
am
to get into
passionate.
that. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
was going
am
to get into
passionate.
that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Hmm.
passionate about social service. So a group of friends, we together started this organization called Young Volunteers Organization, where we are a crowdfunding platform, but of course with zero admin fee and no vested interest. And we donate every month to the highly selected NGOs which create sustainable impacts only in this country. And
Wow.
typically we are doing like 8.5, 9 lakhs every month, and
Every
donated
month.
every month. Yeah,
Wow.
and impacted more than 60,000 lives till date. And yeah, so I've been running this. We have all been running this since now 5 years. And so yeah, so that is something. Yeah, so this is Young Volunteers Organization. and these are the people who run it actively. So this is something which is extremely we are passionate about, and this helps as a what you call it, the balance, to right balance towards your passions and towards your business passions. So yeah, so this so I recommend every entrepreneur to be to have some passion besides their own business and their own family. It could be sports, it could be social service, it could be some creative passion, but some passion is definitely helpful.
And I think it's so important. I think I was reading about even Albert Einstein when he got stuck on the theory of relativity, and he was stuck on it for a long time. He actually went and worked on a complete different project on lasers, and then realized what where he was stuck and came back and fixed theory of relativity. And I think what you're also saying, sometimes you have to get out of that, work mode, go out, go out fishing, go play cricket, go do social service, but go do something else which takes your mind off your business, because then you can come back and look at it with a very fresh perspective. And I think that's the key here. No, so thank you so much. By the way, I too am a member, not a very active one, but I am a member of IVO. I've been there for a few meetings. A very democratic organization. The bank account statements are all given on the website. You get a very long emailer every month of how the money was invested, and I've really been proud. I hope I could have given more time to it. I have other passions which include writing a lot, so I don't get the time. But I'm really glad that I'm part of this, and thank you so much for managing this so well for such a long time.
Thank you.
And I believe what the key thing here is that a lot of these times when your passions in life also come back and impact your business at the end of the day. So when you started Everest, and in fact, there's been a few cases where people who've come on the show where they found their co-founder on a team that they were playing football or cricket with, right? And so I believe in your case, you found a bunch of really awesome, your when you call them co-founders or senior managers, as you would call them, because your organization has a pretty strong group of them. You found them all at YVO.
Yeah, so not only Everest, but even Vista Rooms, even Everest, and even other companies. Typically when you work with people, and especially in a not-for-profit, and not, you get to know the person very well and his abilities and his integrity, and there's a social bond which is developed. So even Vista Rooms, all the founders met in YVO. All the founders met through YVO, and that is how that. And even their senior, a couple of their senior folks have met there. Everest, each and every, so we have a pretty strong senior management team of 7 people right now, and apart from one person, each person has met through YVO, which is Young Volunteers Organization. So yeah,
Wow.
and these are people whom we have seen over a period of time, know their capabilities, know their weaknesses, and you can have complete trust on them. And so as I told you, I don't actively manage the operations of Everest Fleet, the
True.
business. The senior management team that we have, they take care of the entire company is left to them to execute and to manage the company. So yeah, so it has worked very, very well for me. I actually, I went out. I mean, we went out to do good for society. In the end, we did better for ourselves. So it's a you the more you give, the more you get. So it's completely true. At least I have experienced, and everyone in YView has experienced it.
Actually, what you're talking about is such an important thing, that you've delegated your responsibilities and you're not trying to manage the entire organization, which is why today you can manage over 1,200 drivers, right, that are driving your cars. But where did this, when should a founder how can a founder develop this delegation ability? Because most founders I have dealt with, and I'm not talking about all, but I would say at least the majority of them, they are very difficult part, like trying to let people take the football and run, as they call it in America, right? It's very difficult for them. It's like they might try to micromanage, and that actually kills innovation. In your case, you've been able to macromanage in this sense. And you were quoting something even before we started. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So as again, so we at Everest Fleet have done it pretty well, where the senior management team is taking care of the entire operations, and it comes out of the first principle of delegation is trust. You need to trust the people and you need to trust their ability to execute as well or better than yourself. So then again, you need to have people who probably you consider better than yourself, or you consider as good as yourself. So that is the first thing for delegation. The second thing is that continuous monitoring and motivation. That some people are not necessarily, everyone is not good at everything, so you need to have
True.
continuous monitoring and motivation to them. uh, third part of delegation is definitely that you need to be at the back seat, but you should know how to drive the car. So you can't be expecting to delegate without. So I have
So
driven.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have, before, I mean, when we started off this Uber business or this fleet management company, I have driven like a driver in Uber for many, many days. I used to typically make it a habit. First, once a month, I used to drive, and the entire 12-hour shift. So while I am delegating everything, most of the business is something that I know till the minutest level. So yeah, so that is what is pretty important. And yeah, so because we are able to delegate ourselves so well in our company, Everest Fleet, we are able to do a lot of experiments, and one of the quotes of Jeff Bezos is, if you double the number of experiments that you do in a year, you have doubled the inventiveness of your company.
Hmm.
So we truly believe in that. So currently, as we are talking, we have 7 different pilots going on in our company, and the pilot could be as good as launching a new city, or launching a new technology, or launching a new product, or just improving yourselves by using OKRs in the business, or whatever. We have seven different pilots going on, and which for a company of our size is a pretty strong statement that we are able to do these pilots because we have such kind of people, and where we are able to delegate. And we are sure we'll be able to succeed in a couple of them. And then once you succeed, so we also believe in the philosophy that fail small, learn small, and then scale very fast and very big. So once we succeed in the any of those pilots, then we really press the accelerator hard and try to grow it, to scale it to different heights.
So Siddharth, what was the motivation then behind starting Everest Fleet?
So a couple of motivations. The first motivation that we felt that this is a huge job creator as a business. So Everest Fleet, the business was started while so we realized that there's a gap in this Uber or cab aggregators that are running, wherein the asset utilization for a typical taxi is generally 40% or lower, where a driver drives it for 8 to 10 hours a day, and for 6 days a week, and in a year he takes 2 months off. So the taxi is effectively not run for more than 40%. We try to take this 40% to 80% utilization. So the same asset, we try to double the utilization, which means running the asset for 2 shifts, which is 24 hours, using a lot of processes, systems, and technology to ensure that the cars run for 24 hours, 365 days. So this is what the gap we saw in the market. So definitely there was a need. We felt that there was a need. When we went to do our market survey, most of the people who are very, very experienced in this domain said it is impossible. How can you run a car for 24 hours? A car cannot run only for 24 hours. The cars are not designed to run for 20 hours. It's impossible you can manage 2 drivers on one car. It's impossible that whatever you're talking is just. And that was the craziness that we had as a team. And we said, okay, let's try it. Let's try everything. And we tried and most of the places we were able to break the traditional beliefs that were there. So our cars run 24 hours, 365 days, and don't spoil because we maintain it properly. So the myth that cars cannot run for 24 hours, 365 days, years and years together is not true anymore for us. So yeah, so one was this gap that we realized. The second was that this was definitely a huge job creator. So as today we have 1,200 people employed under our company, and we could easily take it to 1,700, 1,800 with the current assets. But because of the COVID scenario, it's a different thing.
I
So
will talk about what COVID did to your business as well. So,
it's a
but
huge
let's
it's a
talk right about. Yeah. Please go ahead.
huge
Please go ahead.
it's a huge job creator. And then the unit economics also fell in place. We were lucky to have a partner like Uber right since day one. So we have been there because Uber is there in the country. So, right since day one, we used to supply cars with Uber. We started with 2 cars and experimented for a few months. We felt confident. We felt they were a good partner to work with. And gradually we scaled up to, 760 cars today, or today as we talk.
Wow,
And yeah,
760 cars.
yeah, and we have operations in Mumbai and Bangalore. We will shortly, hopefully, we'll be starting operations in Delhi early next year, and a couple of cities in the next year itself.
What is
And
interesting to note, however, is that you entered COVID with less than 450 cars. You exited COVID with 760, I mean, all the lockdowns with 760 cars. I don't think any other mobility company in India can actually say that. How did you do
no,
this?
no. So to answer this question honestly, the cars were booked before COVID. So we
Okay.
did not buy any new cars during the COVID. Yeah. So it is just that deliveries were taken staggered, during that time. So Uber has been an extremely good partner for us right since day one, and we have been practically working with Uber only, where we supply cars to Uber. Uber acts like our sales partner and gets us customers, and we service the customers. The entire operational bandwidth, asset financing is our responsibility. Getting the customers is Uber's responsibility.
How did you crack Uber? Like, how did you crack such a big deal with Uber?
No, so initially we were small suppliers to Uber, right, in 2016, where so we started off with 2 cars. As and when our scale grew in, so I had never. Oops, I think Anirudh has logged off. Has been logged off again. So to answer that question, I had never seen the face of an Uber employee, of an Uber senior person, till 2 years, after being in the business. And with 2 cars, we were expanding our fleet. We were expanding. I think we had reached to almost 100 plus cars, and then suddenly, we are called for a meeting. Hey, someone in Uber wants to meet you, and we're like, wow, Uber, folks are calling for as good as going to, for us, it was a very, very proud moment that, some senior people in Uber wanted to meet us, and we went for the meeting. And then they told us, that we've been watching you guys since quite some time, and now why don't we, take this partnership to a new level, and why don't we scale it? So that's how the journey with Uber began, and then they were extremely cooperative, and we had a very, very good partnership with them, and we took it forward from there. Yeah.
Wow. And then, so now, Siddharth, you're on the other side, right? You've gone from the investor side of the table, and you've done something very few entrepreneurs can say they've done, is that, I've seen 100 companies, I've invested in 100 companies, and now I want to be an entrepreneur, right? What is the difference, what is the difference of that you notice in your own entrepreneurship because of your experience as a investor before?
Oh, so most of my, learning, all my learnings till date has been because of my own entrepreneurial family background, and plus my experiences being as an angel investor. I could have never, envisioned a technology-based company. I could have never envisioned having senior people, and co-founders with me in my business. I could have never envisioned running a company as professionally as we do today. As transparently, I could have never envisioned, that doing a business completely transparently, of course, our own family business is also run in an extremely transparent fashion. But these were all learnings that I have taken, that, you should, as a founder, you should be focused only on growth, developing innovation of your business, and not, managing things which affect you in the long term, and take away your bandwidth. So a lot of learnings, using using digital media for the growth of your business, has been come from the angel investing experiences that I had.
And did you see some challenges you've never seen before as an entrepreneur?
Lots of challenges. So challenges were is part of every entrepreneur journey. I also had this, crazy notion that, I want to create something of my own. So I did not take any cap. I mean, I just took a small loan from my father to start this business, a very small loan, and then I went to the bank to get a loan, which my family was like, they've never really been very active borrowers from banks. So they're like, why do you want to go to the bank? And I'm like, no, I want to go to the bank. I want to take a bank loan. And I mean, no bank was ready to give me a loan. I mean, why would they give me a loan? And then, gradually, slowly circumvented that. And so I remember, I mean, that was the first time I actually realized that I was not worthy of getting a loan of, probably 25 lakh rupees. And so then circumvented that, and then hundreds of challenges, building a team, been to police station many times because your drivers do accidents, and all kinds of funny things that they do, and I mean, tons of more challenges.
So has your respect for entrepreneurs gotten even higher, or have you become more empathetic? What has happened?
No. So actually, both for that matter. The respect for entrepreneurs was always there. I mean, I actually considered them as disruptors of the country. That they are creating more and more jobs. They are helping us move from a developing nation to a developed nation. So that respect for any entrepreneur is always there. And
Absolutely.
yes, yeah. And it has gone up more, that the way you have to manage businesses, and you also feel empathetic for them. Hey guys, so I have toned down in my.
I know what you're going. I know what you're going through. Kind of like, okay, I
I
can talk from your level.
Yeah, if you want a little more valuation, it's okay. Let's not, debate on that. Let's do it.
I can't believe those words coming out of your mouth. You want a little bit more valuation? It's okay. Take it. I have never seen you do that.
So I have been known for being a hard negotiator in the angel ecosystem. But yes, tone down a little bit. It's more important to keep everyone happy. So, and especially the founders, so that they're motivated to work harder and do better. So that's what I've toned down a little bit.
So, before we talk about you raising your round of capital, I want to understand, like, we talked a little bit about this balance thingy, but so you're an investor, a founder, you're a father to two kids, you just had a child. Congratulations for that. And one of the children is celebrating a birthday today. And you're also part of a social, project. Plus, you're also helping out in your father's business. And you also, are a really awesome host who loves feeding momos to people, right? So how do you manage it all? Like, I mean, there's only so much time in a day, and you're doing it all.
No, so you're just making it sound, big. I mean, 50% of what you said that everyone does, which is raising up kids and family and helping. But yes, extremely good delegation skills. Yes, this is my son whose birthday. Of course, he's much older now, but yeah, it's his birthday today.
We
It's his
wanted to
sixth.
sing him happy birthday, but daddy won't allow.
It is, it's his sixth birthday today. His name is Ayush, and uh, I am lucky to be surrounded by extremely good people. So just to give you an example, in Young Volunteers Organization, we are around 25-30 people who work actively for that organization, and they are all people like much more accomplished than me, and and running and I get to learn from, and they're giving their time and this for just for the passion, sheer passion of it. We have professionals, we have people passed out from Harvard, we have startup entrepreneurs, we have doctors, lawyers, so I get to learn a lot out of them. So the entire organization runs because of these people. The same way for Everest, I'm surrounded by very, very good people who run the entire organization. So I've been really very lucky that good people have been associated with me. And so that's how I manage my day-to-day activities. And most of my time goes into envisioning new things, new products, new and and brainstorming sessions with my team and with my founders. And yeah, that's how I manage.
So then, I mean, a guy with so many amazing exits, with so much liquidity, and then you go out and, I remember you calling me and said, listen, I want to raise some money. And I was like, you want to raise money? Like, I was about to pitch you my fund, and you're pitching me on startup here, right? And I was like, okay. And I don't think I ever asked you this question, but I'm going to ask you this today and live in front of everybody, which is, why did you just self fund the whole thing yourself? Why go out and raise VC money?
Yeah, just give me a second, please. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so that's why I'm drinking water again and again. Mouth is
No,
getting
I'm
dry.
so glad. I know the situation, but I'm so glad you could make it and we're able to get through this call today.
So yes, so as I told you, right from day one, Everest Fleet, when we started it, the objective was not to take family money and to do it ourselves. So we tried to do that and been successfully. Of course, banks have helped us tremendously in this journey, and also our investors that have helped. So I remember calling you and you coming to the office, and it was like a 45-minute meeting, and you were done with your questions, and I was like, wow. But then I didn't realize that you probably knew me for 5 years before that, and all your questions had been answered in those 5 years about the entrepreneur. So there was so that was so again, being lucky there that I had a really good set of investors who are mostly friends with me, so they knew me. So my the equity round that I raised was basically to manage our debt equity ratio in the company, and we were very lucky to do it very fast because the investors knew us from a long time, and they were cooperative, and we had a pretty good journey during this. Lot of entrepreneurs don't have such a smooth journey during this fundraising session, this fundraising journey. But yeah, but I think that is also changing, with more and more funds like yours and the new age funds coming in, who are quicker in their decision making than the traditional VCs, and they're faster to execute. So I think this is also changing in the ecosystem. So yeah.
In terms of like what you're now looking at doing, and we'll talk about a little bit what COVID did to your growth plan, but you were growing much faster than what you had actually told us, right? And you were able to maintain all your ratios together. What do you think was the key to being able to move so quickly at such a scale? It's one thing to move quickly when you're small, but I remember the numbers pre-COVID, if we talk about like 30% month-on-month growth, and obviously hitting the number that you've promised. I think that was a very key thing for you. I always noticed that if I promise you a number, I'm gonna hit it no matter what, and you did. Invariably, at least out of 10 times, at least 9 times you would hit it. So what was the key there? Like, or how were you able to manage that expectation?
So again, few things to that, but the first one being an exceptional team to deliver this. So even before raising the equity round of funding, we had started building a very, very strong team. So that was number one. I mean, no doubt about it. The second was, we typically tend to undercommit ourselves. We're not very aggressive in making commitments. So I remember the numbers that I had promised you, all the investors, in 12 months. We hit those numbers in 5 months, and we hit it, and we surpassed it by almost 25%. So it was 20%. So it was a very, very good achievement. That the company, as a company, we grew almost 4x in 5 months. So
Yep.
that was an exceptionally, and of course we had a lot of support from Uber also for getting this kind of growth. And sometimes the circumstances, everything goes in your favor. So our growth was mainly expanding the number of cars, and eventually the number of drivers. We got support from Uber. The car prices were extremely low. We had money with us, both equity and debt lines with us, and luckily we got a banker who trusted us, and he opened his debt lines for us, and everything fell in. And we had a team to execute. We had drivers because our name in the market was very good. So everything fell in place. So there was no reason not to expand. So we had grown 4x just before COVID started. If COVID hadn't happened today, I mean, we would have been at probably 10x by now, or 8x at least for sure by now. So yeah, so that's how so everything fell in place for us, and we were able to make that growth.
But Siddharth, actually, COVID only stopped you for about a month and a half, roughly 45 days, right? And then you've come back. So you've emerged out of the lockdown much better, much stronger, with better ratios than you went in with. So let's talk about what COVID did to your business and what was the recovery plan that you came out of? came out
So
with. Right?
COVID actually stopped us for 4 days, to be honest, where we were taken shock, aback by shock that you have to go into
Before you
lockdown.
talk about, can you tell me how you parked 500 odd cars in 4 days? I think that's the story I want to start with.
Yeah, so actually almost 760 cars, with 576 being in Bombay. So yeah, so COVID was announced on 23rd March, and the first thing that we wanted to do was get our assets in place. We didn't want our assets to be lying all over the city with drivers and so on. So a war footing campaign. The entire company got into only one action, which is let's get our cars parked. So we took a parking lot in Lower Parel and got all those cars parked there. And then after so this activity probably took 2 or 3 days. And in this time, we decided, hey, why are we parking our cars? I mean, we are part of essential services. We need to be on the road. A bus driver cannot say that, hey, at this point in time, I'm going because there's COVID. So we actually we got down on the road, and we got down to all our drivers and said, hey guys, we are SSOs. We are like police, like transport, BMC. We cannot, in difficult times, we cannot run away and say that we got down to all our drivers and we're like, can we come on the road again? Let's figure out. We don't know how we are going to make revenue, because most of the everyone was under shutdown at that point in time. And surprisingly, a lot of our drivers agreed, and they agreed, okay, let's go on the road. And of course, we also have outstation drivers working with us, recruited from rural parts of India, where we provide them free accommodation. So they were the primary lot, and even the other drivers, they agreed. And we're like, hey, let's go. So overnight, we launched, and within 2 or 3 days, we launched our own B2C tech portal, where any person who wants essential service can come on the portal and can book a ride. So basically, there were hospital patients, hospital staff, police, BMC. So for those few weeks, there was, if you went out in the city of Mumbai, you could see only Everest Fleet taxi. And this is, Everest Fleet taxi. We had taken all requisite permissions, and this is what the administration, which is the BMC and the police, loved about us. And they gave us permission. Okay, hey, you guys are doing a really noble job. Why don't you all, run your cars? We give you permission, because nobody had permission to run their cars
That's
at that point.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
You
so
work with the government. Wow.
yeah. So very actively, and we used to provide free rides to below poverty line people. We used to provide 50% discounted rides to public servants, and we used to provide at subsidized cost to anyone else for essential services. So we were completely loved by the city of Mumbai, and there were a lot of press articles about us, and a lot of people talking about us, and we became a rage. And as soon as we started doing that, we got 50% of our cars online. And then we gradually moved towards getting all our cars online. So of course, the cab based aggregators, Uber's demand had not started then, because Uber was not allowed to start off. So then we started looking for essential service corporates, so banks, hospitals, and other large corporates who were allowed to work. So we suddenly developed a new line of business, which is supplying cars to corporates for corporate employee transport. So this was the second vertical that we developed. And yes, once Uber started, then we also started putting our cars on Uber. So this is how we survived and we learned a lot of new businesses. We learned how to manage our own B2B business, how to manage our B2C business, as we call it, and the Uber business. What also COVID did to us was, because we decided that we are not going to fire even one person from our team. So as a policy, we
Wow.
decided. Yeah. So it gave us a lot of execution bandwidth to pilot various ideas and try out new ideas. So out of 7 pilots that are going on in our company right now, there are various teams. They have been divided into teams, and yeah. So that is what COVID did to us. That gave us a lot of experience. COVID also did one more thing to us. It got a lot of people who wanted to be associated with us because of the goodwill and the name that we spread amongst everyone. So there are a lot of founder kind of people. So now we have, we are trying to form various joint ventures with people. Someone to do a joint venture to open garages across the city and be a one-stop shop for guys. Someone to launch Delhi for us, the same operations in Delhi. Somebody to do a joint venture where, Uber has come out with a very interesting proposal where we manage the back-end operations for them, which is, acquiring drivers. Or so somebody to do a joint venture to manage that for us. So yeah, so COVID has and a few more under
I
exploration
mean, in
right
fact, you've opened up so many revenue channels, right? I mean, and I think today we were discussing like what are the ways founders that are currently on. There's roughly about over 100 people on, 125 people that are on right now, and it's been so. In what ways can founders now work with Everest? Because you're obviously of a particular size.
Mhm. So yeah, so we love to do various pilots, So we did a pilot in between where we facilitated a startup to give loans to our drivers. We did a pilot where we facilitated some education company to so a lot of pilots. So we believe in the concept of doing pilots, and whichever pilot succeeds, we take it to scale. So so we would love to work with any founder to to do various kinds of pilots and experiments, and we would love to do that.
There's also a way for them to advertise on the car, right? I think.
Oh yeah,
For
oh yeah. So
huh.
we provide a car space, the car wraps that to provide advertisement, which is one of the most effective, cost-effective ways to advertise nowadays, because the eyeballs are far many than any other medium, and the reach is across the city. So yeah, so we love to do that.
So I think we need to, before we get into rapid fire, we need to ask you two questions. One, as an investor, if any founder wants to reach out to you for you to fund their business, and you're a great investor to have on board, how can they reach out to you?
They can simply send me an email on siddharth@ladsariya.com.
Siddharth@ladsariya.com. I'll request the team to just also mention that in the comments. And if they want to work with you at Everest, right? What do they need to do? How do they reach out to you for that?
Send me an email on the same email address.
Okay. So guys, if you're looking to work with Everest, if you're looking to work for Everest, if you're looking to get funded by Everest, right, best place to reach out, Siddharth@ladsariya.com. So
without the exclamation mark, of course.
Yeah, without the exclamation mark. Now, the trajectory obviously has gone sort of like this, and then now going back up, and very quickly. But where do you now see Everest in 5 years? What's your outlook for the company?
So in 5 years, we plan to take the same business, the core business, into multiple cities. So we want to be one of the leading suppliers for Uber and one of the largest suppliers in the world for Uber, covering all the geographies in India. So that is where we see the first part. We want to take this employment that we've created of 1,200 people to as high as 20,000 people. So we want to take that. We want to launch more businesses under our vertical, again to do with logistics and transport itself. So that is various pilots which we are doing. We hope that we can succeed in few of them and take it to a higher scale. And so these are the we want to build our business with two foundations. One is tech and the second is HR. So in our business, only tech doesn't work. You need to have a human element to it. So we want to club these two foundations in our business, and and when we are able to successfully do that in a very good way, we have reached the nirvana level. So yeah, so this is where I see Everest in the next 5 years, creating 20,000 jobs, being a profitable company, as we have always been, always overachieving our targets and even the stretch targets set for ourselves, and making most of our cost centers into profit centers, and launching various lines of business under the similar domain.
Wow, and that is some very ambitious goal. Are you planning to be a unicorn in 5 years? Is that a plan?
No, I don't know. I mean, there is no plan. I mean, we don't. We work hard, and these are all side products for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Siddharth. I think that at least the Q&A portion that I had is done. I'm so excited. I mean, I already was excited because I'm a part of the company, but I get even more excited now that I know what the 5-year plans are, and we look forward to continuing to grow this partnership that we have, and be a valuable partner for Everest as things come along. Now, before we end, there's a bunch of questions, and hopefully, guys, just keep sending questions. We'll take a few before we end tonight. But we have the rapid fire round of the show that's about to go out. So the rules are very simple, Siddharth. I've got about 10 to 12 questions that I put together. I'm going to ask them to you rapidly. You need to give a rapid answer, whatever first comes to mind. And then, if something interesting comes out, as I know you have this dry sense of humor, as you always do, we'll try to delve a little bit deeper into it and see what you really meant. So are you ready for rapid fire?
Sure, ready.
Cool. So first question, this is a question that I ask everybody. It's a Peter Thiel question. One thing that you know to be true, but very few people agree with you on it.
Wow. So, so, so my dream of creating this company to create more jobs. I know this is a true dream, but a lot of my stakeholders don't agree with this dream, so they have different objectives of doing business. So yeah, that I would say. Yes.
In fact, even it was difficult for me to believe that there was such a social objective behind it, right? Because it's such a hardcore profit-making machine that you built, and the way you really manage some of these really small intricacies, like you won't let us order pizza. We have to eat from Guru Kripa's samosa chart that you have, or you'll only order from Wow Momos because you're an investor in the company. You're just like, you know, where is the perk of at least having a coffee, right? But no, everything. So, but the way you manage the whole thing, it's very very clear. You have an objective to also make this company profitable. So that's probably why it's difficult to believe that you're doing this as a social cause. Uh, One piece of advice to founders about fundraising. Now, this is going to be very interesting.
So don't run behind raising funds. Do your business well. Okay. If your business does well, funds will funds will naturally flow in. This said, not that you don't have to work towards raising funds, but don't run behind raising funds.
Don't run behind raising funds. That's a very key thing. I think you build a business that people want to come and invest in, and then it takes care of itself. I know you're not much of a movie buff, but who's your favorite superhero?
Superhero, Iron Man.
Iron Man. It just seems to be every male founder only has one superhero with him, and that's Iron Man. And why Iron Man?
Oh, I mean, I love the way he's built himself. I mean, the way he portrays, himself, and again, doing good for. So I mean, love him. And recently, I don't know whether you read it or not, but in UP, in one small village in UP, there was a balloon flowing of Iron Man up, a really large balloon, and the cops and the armed forces and everyone had to be called in because they were so scared what is flowing on the sky. And then when they, actually got it, it's the Iron Man balloon. I was so happy seeing that. This last week, yeah.
I think I know the answer to this one, but let's ask you: scaling before profitability or profitability before scaling?
Definitely profitability before scaling.
Profitability. And it almost funds itself, right? So completely agree with you on that. If you could pick the brain of one person for 24 hours and you could ask them any question you want, who would it be?
Professor Sunil Handa. So he is
Professor.
yeah,
Okay.
he's a mentor to us. I am a Ahmedabad entrepreneurship head, and the time that we spend with him, and he's extremely passionate about entrepreneurship and creating more entrepreneurs in this country. That's his only goal. And if we could, I would spend maximum amount of time picking his brains.
Professor Sunil Handa, guys, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him yet, but I've heard so many amazing things. And you know what, Professor Handa, if you're listening, I know you've already given some time to Siddharth in the past, but let's give him another 24 hours. One thing you would like to change about the Indian startup ecosystem?
So a lot of positive changes that have been happening over the past few years, but I would definitely like to change about the Indian startup that the government is not really providing any active support to our startups, which is done in other countries, which is providing tax concession for investors to invest in startups, or providing some amount of real support to the startups. So I would really want the government to be more active.
Especially the funds. There needs to be some real support to funds as well, because we'd like to be a lot more supportive of startups, but it's difficult to raise funds in this country at least as of now. And it would really be helpful if the government would just give some sort of, like you said, some tax concession, the way they support the renewable energy industry. If they could do something like that, I think there is such a huge amount of energy coming out of the country from everywhere, right? I mean, you're part of it today, but I completely agree with you. I think the government needs to step up and do a lot more. According to you, Siddharth, what is one thing investors should bring to the table other than money?
So investors get a lot of mentorship, and so that is definitely one thing that investors should try to actively contribute to the growth of the company using their mentorship and connects.
Mentorship and connects. A company in your anti portfolio that you regret missing out on.
So I regret missing out on Zoom car.
Okay.
So that is part of my anti portfolio, and yeah, I regret.
It's in my anti portfolio too. I think we were both together in Bangalore when it happened. So we had gone to see at Chancery the operation. Uh, what is your, are you a morning person, evening person, or a night person? When you do
Morning.
your best work? So guys,
So I
unlike, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Go
I,
ahead.
I wake up between around 6 o'clock in the morning.
Guys, this is the only founder so far that we've had who says that he works in the morning. So if you want to reach out to Siddharth, write emails in the morning, schedule emails to go out in the morning. So it hits his email account in the morning. Uh, and what is your typical morning like?
So typical morning starts with reading the various news and so on, replying to emails. So I by the time 8 or 9, I'm done with all my email replying, reading of the news, various newspapers, and so on, so on. By that time I'm done, and then I begin my day early by 8:39, where currently in the Zoom environment on phone calls and Zoom TV, and yeah, so that's how I take it.
Siddharth, I know your father won't like me asking you this question, but I will. If you were to be convicted for a crime, what would it be? Feeding too much momos to people. I think that's the crime.
No, I mean, no. I mean, I've never thought of being. I mean, I'm. So
It doesn't have to be a real crime. It could be a funny crime. I'm just saying, what would it be?
yeah, it the so feeding momos to the people. Yeah, that could be a funny
Yeah,
crime
yeah.
because
Guys,
when you,
if Siddharth, you need to get Siddharth to invite you for lunch and just see the way he spreads those momos out and then feeds it to you one by one, like a connoisseur. Three books you would recommend to founders.
so there was this book recommended by a good friend of mine. Measure What Matters by John Doerr. So
Yeah.
that's one book that I would definitely recommend to founders. Uh, Honestly, I'm not such a big reading fan. So there's one more book that I would like to. Sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more book that I would like to recommend to founders, which has just been recommended to me by Anirudh, but I forget the name of the book.
The 3G way. I think I just sent that book out to everybody. Yeah,
Yeah, which I've just
3G way.
started. Yeah, so these are the two books that I would like to recommend to founders.
Is there any blog that you would recommend for people to follow?
So
Are you active? Yeah.
I actively follow this blog, The Speaking Tree, written by again an active YBO volunteer called Maulik Unadkat. He also runs a group called What I Read Today, where every morning people just post positive articles that they've read today. So I actively follow that as well. So I would recommend people who are passionate about positive reading and positive life changing blogs to follow him.
And the last question for today: what is one discipline that a founder should not let go of, regardless, like that one activity per day that he should not let go of, regardless of what happens in his life or her life?
So I had learned this pretty early on from the LinkedIn founders experiences, that every day in the morning you come down and jot down 3 tasks which you have to complete apart from your regular day-to-day task, and you don't leave office till you have completed those 3 tasks. And I think that makes a huge difference to the way you work, where you jot down 3 tasks apart from your regular day-to-day work that you have to complete today. And once you can complete it the same day or when you've targeted it, it makes a huge. So I would recommend founders to, if they can follow this habit, it will be very, very good.
It's so interesting. It's just bring it. It's very simple. Just put down those three tasks and just make sure they're in front of you all the time, right? And you get that done. It's so very simple, but if you do three every day, imagine in a month you would have done 90 tasks that you must complete. So it's a great advice. Great advice. So with this, rapid fire is over, right? You can take another sip of water as you just did. Siddharth, let me see. I think there's a bunch of questions, but we're also almost out of time. So let me see if there's any one question that we could take maybe. So there was one question I think by Dishit. Let's see what the question was. Um, okay, his question was that how is it as founders? Let me just see. Is it? Yeah, there you go. What motivates both of you, and I'll let you answer this one, to go again and again after so many successful investments? Like, how do you keep finding such successful founders and investments?
So, so we go after investments. It is only time which tells us, that whether it is successful or not. But the one thing that definitely motivates all of us is to dream the founders' dreams. To see their excitement, dream along with them, and be in this almost kind of a virtual world. That is something which is very, very exciting. You can't even define, the excitement that you get as an investor when you meet founders, and so that is definitely something that motivates all of us.
I'll take one more question because it's very interesting. This is from Jayesh Singhania. He says, how do you think founders should approach investors and business leaders for advice, right? For mentorship, I'm guessing. And also, how often should they ask the same question? Wouldn't people get annoyed? You've been on both sides, so it's very interesting answer from you.
So to answer your question, Jayesh, one thing, as founders, you should never approach an investor for advice with the objective of raising investment from him at a later date. I mean, it's just camouflage. It doesn't work. It's not taken this. But if you are able to find a mentor who just mentors you for the simple passion of it, and there are lots of people in this ecosystem who just do it for the fun of it and for the passion of it, and they are extremely approachable, extremely good with their advice. And then there's no limit on how many questions can you ask the same person. You can ask the same person, you can take help of the same person, the how many ever number of times you need it. These passionate mentors never get annoyed. These passionate mentors will never take equity from you. They will never charge you money. They will only be, the only kick that they get is mentoring you, and then they will never get annoyed.
So key, guys. I think a lot of the times, and I see this in the West a lot, is that founders actually go out and give equity to their mentors, right? As a form of gratitude. I think any mentor that says I will not mentor you unless you know pay me or give me some equity, I think that's not a true mentor. So best to avoid. So I think Siddharth, we already are 15 minutes over. We will have to take everyone's leave. Thank you so much. I think today's episode has seen a lot of engagement, and we'll be back next week. So next week is episode 20. So we'll be having a investor come on board. But thank you so much, Siddharth, for
Thank
your
you.
time, and I know you're under the weather, so really appreciate you being on. Any final
Thank
thoughts?
Oh, it was a great show, and I had a great host with me. And really, thank you for having us today here.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. I really appreciate you being on. We really had a lot of fun, a lot of content to cover. Thank you so much.